So when I'm not busy punching boulders, I sometimes like to relax myself with a good old Rubik's Cube. And if not that, maybe some video games. One of my favorite genres to play is the stealth genre, with the original two Theif games released in 1998 and 2000 sitting at the top of my list. The funny thing is I only recently made my way through these games within the last few years. Those two have been sitting in my Steam backlog for so long from sales long ago. When I finally did make my way through playing Thief 1 and Thief 2, they instantly jumped to the near top of my favorite games of all time list, ones I feel that game designers should look at as a template on how to make great games. And over the years we've seen many great games with their take on the stealth genre, and I find these also sit at the top of the pantheon of great games in my mind. In fact, I did two recent videos on two of these games, that being Dishonored 2 and Deus Ex Mankind Divided. And as much as I enjoyed the previous two games I mentioned, and along with amongst other stealth games, I'm constantly frustrated by how many of these stealth games rely on visuals instead of audio cues like Thief does. I want to examine this further. Let's discuss the core gameplay loop of Thief. You're sneaking around and stealing enough loot in order for Garrett to cover his rent for the month, and you fetch other goodies that you've been hired to steal. In order to do so, you make your way around these sprawling levels, avoiding guards or taking care of them any way you see fit. You have a number of items and weapons at your disposal should you wish to do this. However, Garrett is no Corvo or Adam Jensen, and just with a few hits he goes down very easily. So what other options do you have available to you? Do you have something like detective vision? Nope. Garrett has no powers to see through walls and see enemies' line of sight. How about a mini-map that shows enemy placements or line of sight, or quest markers to guide you to what you're looking for in the level? You do have some hand-drawn maps that are given to you that get less detailed as the game goes on, but that's about it. I've done a whole video on how much I despise mini-maps. Every time a new game is built around mini-map, I feel the balance of the universe shift more towards the forces of evil. What about a suspicion bar filling up letting you know that you've been detected? Or do you have a brief reflex mode for when enemies spot you to take care of them? Nope. You have none of that. So, what do you have available to you in these situations? Well, my Zoomer friends, this is what you have. You have an indicator at the bottom of the screen that lets you know how visible you are. And what's that? Take a closer listen. And with this sound, I could tell without seeing, without detective vision or mini-maps, how many enemies are in front of me, their proximity, where they're located, are they coming near me, are they going away from me, and how many other stealth games take this approach where audio is vital for understanding where other enemies are. Granted, I'm not saying that other stealth games that everyone is dead quiet when they walk around. But I'm sure you've had that experience of going around the corner in one of these games only to run to an enemy that you couldn't hear because you weren't using your detective mode or seeing through walls or your mini-map to spot them. These are why these games become so common to be safe scummed, but this approach that Thief takes, the one that focuses more on the audio, is one that has been very rarely touched since its release 20 years ago. The Thief games are built from the ground up with this concept in mind. There are different surfaces that have different noise levels. Running across a carpet works just fine, you'll be nice and quiet. However, running across a marble floor is going to make a lot of noise. At all times, you're aware of how much noise you're making, how visible you are, and where guards are located. And there you go, Zoomers, without needing to resort to 3000 UI cues that a lot more games like to use to take your attention away from the focus and shift your eyes towards the corner of the screen. You can now focus on the world around you and through audio.
Hello?
I'm no expert on the technology around the audio, but I could be wrong, but it seems like it shouldn't be overly difficult to build a game around this as a core part of it. It shouldn't be that difficult to implement a directional audio system like Thief makes use of. They did it 20 years ago. You should be able to do that now. A lot of studios aren't exactly familiar with building with audio in mind like the way the Thief games do, and rely on their past experiences of working with visuals instead, because of course graphics do sell. I don't think you're exactly going to be seeing great audio cues on the back of a box anytime soon. Now, to be clear, it's not exactly a bad thing games like Dishonored or Deus Ex make use of this approach where it's more visual based. The games are still very playable if you do turn these all off like I did when I did my playthroughs of them. However, it's games being built from the ground up with these in mind. You staring at these mini-maps or these guards lines of sights as opposed to the game itself. Again, it feels like another shift in the universe of the forces of evil winning out. Maybe publishers feel that Zoomers these days have no attention span whatsoever and need to be told exactly where to go. So my friends, is this a pit of despair? Sure. We could replay the Thief games over and over, or you could use something like the Thief mod or fan missions to get your fix on that front. But are there any current developers taking from the world of Thief and bringing it forward? Is it possible? While I feel the shift in the gaming world move over towards the forces of evil in the last decade or so, the rise of the indie games has shifted some of that balance away to the forces of good that still exist in this world. Some of my favorite games in the past decade or so didn't come from big publishers with big budgets, but small teams full of passionate designers trying out different things or trying out things that AAA developers weren't doing. One that is upcoming is a game called GLOOMWOOD. This comes from the people who worked on the game Dusk that had very positive reviews as one of the top rated games on Steam. Now, to be clear, I have not played Dusk, but I realize the game has plenty of love. Perhaps in between a session of punching boulders, I will get around to it. And what I've seen of the gameplay so far is very promising. Directional audio cues, no HUDs, all the things I look for in a game like Thief. And you always hear that term spiritual successor get thrown around a lot. I saw that with Dishonored being considered a spiritual successor to Thief, and to an extent I would agree with it. But this one looks far more in line of what made Thief and is using that template. Now, of course, there is no guarantee that things will work out great for this game, and it may be a while that we see it, but this is one I'm keeping my eye on. To conclude, I would love to see game developers look back at games like Thief, whether they're making stealth games or not, that can make use of audio cues as part of their core gameplay. I don't want and need every game to tell me exactly where every enemy is and what their line of sight is by just staring at this little corner on the screen. I want to know that for myself. And what better way to do so by using an audio-based approach like Thief? Thief had this figured out over 20 years ago, guys. What's the holdup? Alright, that's enough ranting for now. Now, if you excuse me, I have to sneak out of this quarantine and find some boulders to go punch. Have yourselves a fine day, everyone.